The lungs of the earth are going to be given back to it, which is all these trees and all of these flowers, and it's going to be a whole total different vibration.
The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice in thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fella is come up against us.
Because the Lord is going to restore everything. You're going to have a total different vibration on the earth, a total different smell. You're not going to be walking down the street and smell shit and piss, and no foul odors or nothing like that, because the lungs of the earth are going to be given back to it, which is all these trees and all of these flowers, and it's going to be a whole total different vibration. You're going to see the aura and how things are going to change and how elevated things are going to be. Our senses are going to be heightened. Everything about us is going to be glorified.
The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice in thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fella is come up against us. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. All right, and what I want to go into today, all right, is dealing with, this devil, and his unfair practices, all right, and how he rules the earth. The earth is ran, okay, by a wicked ruler, okay, and this man is very, tyrannical in how he deals with the people, and he's very deceptive, because he has showered people, with so much, convenience, all right, this false sense of abundance, okay, and people don't look at this man and his systems, okay, as being, tyrannical, okay, but this society is ran by unjust systems of the devil, man, okay. We have to understand the problem with the planet Earth is it's ruled by men who have no fear, okay, of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, okay, because when you go into the scriptures, matter of fact, let's get that in, and we'll get to that, but let's get that in the book, okay, and Sirach, and the book of Wisdom of Solomon as well. But when you get that, okay, in the book of Sirach chapter 10, and we always get it, all right, and the world, is waking up, people are calling things out, all right, and the problem of the earth, okay, is an Edomite problem, You have Edomites in power. All right, the worst of the heathen. Okay, and they're very unjust men, greedy men. There's a niggard that's in power. Okay, a very selfish, greedy, unjust man, lewd, unjust man at that. Okay, so this is the book of Sirach 10:3. It says an unwise king destroyed his people. And see, we're seeing that in real time. Okay, we're seeing what this looks like real time of an unwise king destroying his people. Okay, and he doesn't let a opportunity go by, a moment go by. Okay, where he can destroy. All right, the masses, man, especially the tribes. But through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited, man. And the growing healthy population, okay, is a sign of a wise king. Okay, but here you have the opposite, man. Okay, and this devil, he destroys people every way that he can, financially, economically, spiritually, mentally, your health, every way he can destroy you. Okay, he has a system set up to do that. Okay, so when you go here to let's get this in the Wisdom of Solomon. All right, read chapter 1. All right, this is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1. All right, Wisdom of Solomon 1 and 1. It says, "Love righteousness, ye that be judges of the earth." All right, so it's a requirement to love righteousness, ye that be judges of the earth. That's why when you go into okay our history, dealing with our kings, okay, they will have to read the book of the law. Okay, you had certain let me see. Let's see. So let's go here. All right, real quick. Just go into a little bit of our history. Okay. Just a quick AI overview. All right. It said the Israelite kings have to read the book of the law. It says, yes, Israelite kings were commanded by, all right, the Most High in Deuteronomy 17 to write a personal copy, okay, of the book of the law of the Torah and read it daily to revere, all right, the Most High, to stay humble and rule justly. Okay, so a ruler was supposed to rule, okay, by the commandments and the order, all right, and the wisdom of the Most High. This is what it means to love righteousness, man, to really tap in, okay, to righteousness and implement it within your kingdom. Okay, so wisdom of Solomon 1 and 1 is going to love righteousness, which that was a requirement for Israelite kings. Okay, you see, it says, although historical records suggest many kings neglected this duty, with King Josiah being a notable example of someone, all right, whose revival followed rediscovering the lost book of the law. He was known as the king that reformed, Judah. He did a heavy reform on Judah when he found that book. Okay, it said the divine command, write a copy. The king had to write his own copy of the law, like Deuteronomy or the whole Torah on a scroll. He was to keep this scroll with him and read from it all the days of his life. This was to teach him to fear the Lord, obey the commandments, avoid pride, ensure the long-term stability of his kingdom. Okay, you see, and this is why part even today, blessed is he that readeth. That's why daily we should be tapping into our book, man. This is the part of kings that ain't being the king that ain't glamorous. Okay, really tapping into wisdom. This ain't the glamorous part. Okay, of being a king. You see, this is the responsibility of a king to really tap in. Now we know we can't keep the law perfectly. Okay, but engulfing in this wisdom, okay, does enhance our ability to deal with day to day. To govern ourselves first and foremost. Govern our houses. According to what we can do. We need jacked up situations, man. But hey, having an understanding of the Bible, Okay, is the highest wisdom that you can have in existence, is understanding this book. You know, but going back to the point, we're being ruled by a man that doesn't regard, okay, the laws of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, the standard of the scriptures. Okay, so I just want to go into that real quick, but going back here, okay, this man does, what he wants to do. You know, now when you go to back in Wisdom of Solomon, okay, 1:1, it says, "Love righteousness, ye that be judges of the earth. Think of the Lord with a good heart, and in simplicity of heart seek Him." One thing that this devil does, because when you stray away from the Most High, simple things become complex. Simple things become complex when you stray away from the wisdom of the Most High. Okay, and that's why you have people having, the earth is full of what, these dumb ass arguments, simple arguments. Who go to what bathroom? Who bring what to the table? Popping the goddamn balloon. Okay, the earth too hot, the earth too cold. You see, all this madness, man. You see, 20 something genders, man. All this goes from leaving the simplicity and the wisdom of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, and you have dysfunction and confusion. Okay, and it comes from the ruler. The confusion stems from the rulers. If the people are confused, that means the rulers, okay, are confused. Okay, it said, "Think of the Lord with a good heart, and in simplicity of heart seek Him, for He will be found of them that tempt Him not." And that's all this devil does, is tempt the Most High, man. And his rulership, that's all he does. He established legislation, gay marriage, same sex marriage. Okay, direct rebellion. Okay, abortions, and you see, PD files. All right, PDF files. All these things. All this man does is tempt the Most High within his rulership. Exalt Satan every chance he get. Okay, it says, "For he will be found of them that tempt him not, and showeth himself unto such as do, all right, as do not trust him and do not distrust him." And this is what we're being conditioned and trained up to be, is righteous rulers, men that trust their power, men that don't tempt their power. Okay, so as a ruler, there's a certain etiquette, there's a certain standard, there's a certain expectation, and as the earth has been given into the hand of the wicked, this man has done nothing but injustice, man. Okay, let's go here. All right, and this book is full of wisdom of how to rule and how to govern. Okay, well, but with this devil, okay, you read Proverbs 22:16. It says, "He that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich," and that's the system that's set in place. Okay, to where at the expense of the poor becoming more impoverished, all right, a few get rich. The system is meant to drain the poor and enrich, all right, the super rich. Okay, that's the system that this man has set up. You know, and it's an unjust system. All right, and this man is not fit to rule in any capacity, man. All right, so you read this again. It says, "He that oppresses the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to want." Okay, so this devil, all right, he's going to come to want. You see, he's going to be enslaved. Everything that he's doing is just leading to the end of his rulership and his enslavement and the countdown to his extermination, man. Okay, he's going to go from abundance to surviving. He's going to go beyond wealth, beyond comprehension, to surviving in captivity. Okay? His devil finna go through a great demotion, man, and rightfully so, man. Okay? Because with all this technology and all these gadgets and everything that this man has in place, okay, it's a very unfair, unjust system. Okay? So let's go here and see, and we're set up to critique, this man's government, because as we're judges in training, the Lord has, he's allowing us to critique this man, okay, and his wickedness and the way that he ruled, his ruling style, okay. So I want to get this video here. It says why an entire generation will never own a home, okay, and it sums up things we've been talking about, you know, and it just shows you this system, and it's just another example of how unrighteous this man, okay, is that's in power. Okay, he even impoverishes his own people. Now we know the target is Jake, the main target. Okay, but this man is so greedy he can't never have enough. He robs his own people. you know. So let's play this. All right, and this is what these devils want going into this new world order. Okay, is people not to be able to afford anything. All right, so when he does, offer him something with this new world order system, he's gonna look like a hero. Okay, so let's play this.
You the keys to your first home, that specific weight in your hand for generations. That was the thing. You can picture it, can't you? The keys to your first home, that specific weight in your hand for generations. That was the finish line, the moment you knew you'd made it, the start of your real life. Well, I am here to tell you that finish line has been moved. For most of us, it has been moved to a place we can never ever reach, and it wasn't an accident. The dream wasn't lost, it was stolen. It was sold off, piece by piece, to the highest bidder, and you were never even invited to the auction. If you feel like the system is rigged against you, that no matter how hard you work, you are just falling further behind, you are not crazy, you are paying attention. Stick with me for the next few minutes, and make sure you subscribe, because I am going to show you exactly who pulled the rug out from under an entire generation, and why they're betting billions that you'll be a renter for life. It wasn't that long ago that the path was clear. You get a decent job, you save up for a few years, and you buy a home. It was the foundation of the middle-class dream. It wasn't just about shelter. It was about stability. It was your piece of the world, your stake in society. It was how you built wealth generation after generation. Your parents and your grandparents. They followed this blueprint. They were told that if they worked hard and played by the rules, they would get their reward. For a time, that promise held true. A single income could often support a family and a mortgage. It was the bedrock of our economy, the engine of social mobility. But while we were all still chasing that dream, the rules of the game were being rewritten in secret. The first crack in the foundation appeared decades ago. It is something economists call the Great Decoupling, starting around the 1970s. A strange thing happened. For all of modern history, as businesses got more productive and made more money, workers got paid more. The two things were linked. Then, suddenly, they weren't. Productivity kept soaring sky high thanks to new technology and efficiency. But wages, they just stopped. They went flat. All that new wealth being created wasn't going to the people doing the work anymore. It was being funneled to the top. This created a gap, a chasm. Year after year, the cost of everything, especially housing, kept climbing. But the paychecks for the average person simply didn't keep pace. The math stopped working. And then came 2008, the financial crisis. The housing bubble burst, and the whole global economy nearly went down with it. We were told a story about irresponsible borrowers and predatory lenders. And while that was part of it, it missed the most important consequence. Millions of people lost their homes, their life savings, their stability, everything they'd worked for was wiped out. It was a tragedy on a massive scale. But in the world of high finance, one person's tragedy is another's opportunity. While neighborhoods across the country were littered with foreclosed homes, a new kind of buyer was watching. They weren't families looking for a place to live. They had spreadsheets, algorithms, and billions of dollars in capital. Wall Street saw the wreckage not as a crisis, but as the single greatest investment opportunity of a generation. This is where the real villain of our story enters. Private equity firms, names you might have heard of, like Blackstone, armed with incomprehensible amounts of cash from pension funds, university endowments, and wealth funds. They swept into these devastated markets. Their strategy was simple and brutal. They started buying up tens of thousands of single-family homes, not to fix and flip, not to help communities recover. They bought them to rent them out. They weren't just buying houses, they were buying entire neighborhoods. They could pay in cash, closing in days, waiving all inspections. A young couple with a mortgage pre-approval stood absolutely no chance. They were outgunned before they even knew they were in a fight. This was the birth of a brand new asset class, the single family rental, or SFR. Imagine you've done everything right. You saved for years, you have a good credit score, you got pre-approved for a loan. You find a home you love, you put in an offer, maybe even over the asking price, and then you lose to an offer that came in sight, unseen, all cash, with a promise to close in a week. You are not competing with another family. You are competing with a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They don't need loans. They don't need appraisals. They don't need inspections. They have teams of people and sophisticated software that can analyze and bid on hundreds of properties a day. They are a vacuum cleaner for housing inventory, sucking up the supply of starter homes that would have traditionally gone to first-time buyers. They've turned a home, a place of shelter and community, into just another line item on a global balance sheet. So they bought the houses. Now what? They have to manage them. And they do it with a terrifying efficiency. Many of these corporate landlords use rent-setting software from a company called RealPage. Their main product is called YieldStar. Landlords, even supposed competitors, feed all of their private rental data into this one central algorithm. The algorithm then tells every landlord exactly what to charge for rent to maximize profits. The software knows when your lease is up. It knows what the demand is in your specific zip code, and it recommends pushing rents up and up and up. Investigators have alleged this is a new form of digital cartel, a way to collude on pricing without ever having to sit in a smoke-filled room.
And this is why, rents are so high. You ever feel like, you know, you only have just enough to get by. Well, this man has AI. When he says algorithm, this is AI that's coming up, okay, with these rent prices, because they're feeding the AI this data, okay, the average income for this area, okay, the average, you know, uh, people per house in this area, okay, and based off that, they're calculating rent with what you might have left after feeding, your household, okay. So what's happening? They're able to outprice people, price you out, and they're intentionally doing this to where it's unaffordable. They want housing unaffordable, man. Because Blackstone going to Blackstone, there's nothing but a branch of the Rothschilds, all right, financial cartel, okay, and they're able, okay, to just buy cash, for all these, okay, foreclosed houses, okay, and turn them into rental houses, okay, because in the New World Order, they don't want you owning the house, okay, they will, because when you don't have debt, they can't control you. It's hard to control people without any debt. So they want you in debt. They don't want generational wealth. All right. He's going to go into these things. Okay. So you had a boom of the middle class after FDR. And this was for Edomites. Jake had their thing going, here and there. But mainly, FDR, all right, Franklin, Roosevelt, the New Deal. And that created, spending. Okay. And that created legislation that created a booming middle class. Okay. Well, one job was able to cover a family, a house, buy the house off, buy the car off, hand things down to the next generation, and the next generation didn't have to deal with debt it had a head start, and then they can build onto that and hand that down. They didn't want, all right, wealth creation. They don't want wealth creation amongst the lower and middle class. They want debt slaves, okay? Because when you're in debt, all right, they have all the control. They can modify your behavior based off your debt, okay? So this is the system that these devils play, man. It's a very wicked system, okay? So you had a time of a thriving middle class, but then as we went into it, Ronald Reagan, he came and stripped all the power from the working class and gave it to the corporations. Put the corporations in the driver's seat. Now the corporations are in full control of the government, all right, and the corporations own the people, okay, and to promote, all right, to inspire you, okay, to go out and labor for them. They need you in debt, okay. So home ownership is becoming a thing of the past, okay. This is the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. Okay, let's play this.
It squeezes every last dollar out of tenants because the algorithm knows there is nowhere else for them to go. Let's look at a real-world example. Take a city like Atlanta, Georgia. In some zip codes there, institutional investors own nearly 1 in every 5 single-family homes. Think about that. Walk down a street in one of these neighborhoods, and the house on your left, the one across the street, and 2 more down the block aren't owned by your neighbors. They're owned by a faceless entity in New York or Dallas. Residents report at night and day difference. Maintenance requests are ignored, handled by call centers thousands of miles away. Fees are tacked on for everything imaginable, and every year, like clockwork, the rent goes up by double digits. The sense of community evaporates. People don't know their neighbors because their neighbors might be gone in a year, replaced by another tenant in an endless churn. The neighborhood is no longer a community. It is a portfolio. You'll often hear people say, "We just have a supply problem. We need to build more houses." And while it is true that we haven't built enough starter homes, that is a convenient oversimplification. It is not just a supply problem. It is an allocation problem. The available supply is being systematically acquired by a small number of massive players. Building more houses doesn't solve anything. If those same corporations just buy them up too, they have the capital to do it. In fact, they're counting on it. Every new house they buy is one less house available for a family to own. They are cornering the market on a fundamental human need. It is a strategy designed to reduce the number of homeowners and increase the number of renters, because a permanent renter is a permanent revenue stream. If you thought buying existing homes was bad, the next phase is even more dystopian. It is called build to rent. These corporations are now going directly to home builders and buying up entire brand new neighborhoods before a single foundation is even poured. Or they're becoming the developers themselves. They are building entire communities from scratch with one purpose: to rent them out forever. Not a single home in these developments will ever be for sale. The dream of buying a new home in a nice new neighborhood, that option is being erased. They are creating permanent rental communities by design. This is the end game. A future where you don't even have the option to buy in many areas. You will rent the home. You will rent the furniture. You will rent everything. You will own nothing. Now, Wall Street isn't the only villain. They have unwitting accomplices in local governments across the country. For decades, restrictive zoning laws have made it illegal to build anything other than large, single-family homes on most residential land. You can't build duplexes. You can't build small starter homes on smaller lots. You can't build the kind of modest, affordable housing that used to be the first rung on the property ladder. This so-called NIMBY-ism, sue not in my backyard from existing homeowners, protects their own property values, but pulls up the ladder for everyone else. This artificially restricts supply and drives up land costs, making it even easier for deep-pocketed corporations to be the only ones who can afford to build anything at all. It creates the very scarcity that they then exploit. There is another player in this game: global capital. For the world's ultra-wealthy, real estate in stable countries is not primarily for shelter. It is a safe deposit box. It is a secure place to park cash, often away from the prying eyes of their own governments. This flood of foreign money, often channeled through anonymous shell companies, bids up prices for everyone, especially in major cities. They buy luxury condos that often sit empty for most of the year, functioning as nothing more than a store of value, like a gold bar with a nice view. While this primarily impacts the high-end market, it has a domino effect, pushing local wealthy buyers into the next tier down, and so on until the pressure reaches the bottom and pushes first-time buyers out of the market completely. So you have stagnant wages and corporations buying up all the houses. But there is another anchor weighing down an entire generation: debt, specifically student loan debt. Previous generations could graduate with little to no debt. Today, young people start their careers with a financial burden equivalent to a mortgage, but without the house. How can you possibly save for a 20% down payment when you have a 5 or 6 figure debt payment every single month for decades? It is an impossible choice. You are forced to choose between investing in your education and ever having a hope of owning a home. The system has saddled young people with so much debt that they are disqualified from the homeownership game before it even begins. Homeownership has always been the primary vehicle for building generational wealth for middle-class families. It was the largest asset most people ever owned. You spend 30 years paying it off, and then you have a valuable asset to pass on to your children, giving them a head start in life. When you take that away, you sever that chain. A generation of renters builds zero equity. They pay hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in rent over their lifetime and end up with nothing. Their monthly payment isn't building their future. It is funding a shareholder's dividend. This is creating a new permanent financial caste system, a class of owners and a much, much larger class of renters, with almost no way to cross from one side to the other. This isn't just about finances. It is about hope.
And that's another thing. This new world order, is meant to establish as well. Is a permanent class, okay, of elite wealthy families, okay, and the permanent class of poverty, the have-nots, and there's no crossing over. You know, if you're born into that impoverished class, that's where you're gonna be. Okay, if you're born into that wealthy class, that's what it's gonna be. Okay, so this is also another thing this digital system, all right, attempts to establish as a permanent elite, 1%, all right, and the permanent impoverished 99%. Okay, that continues, all right, with their labor, okay, enriching, you see, the uh, the 1%. A very unjust system, man, a very unbalanced system. Okay, let's play this some more.
It is the psychological toll of having a core life aspiration feel completely and utterly out of reach. It breeds a sense of failure, even when you are doing everything you were told was right. It creates anxiety and instability. How can you put down roots? How can you feel secure in your community when you know a rent hike could force you to move at any time? It delays major life decisions, getting married, having children. It creates a pervasive feeling of being a guest in your own life. This constant precarity is exhausting. It is the slow-burning death of the optimism that fueled previous generations. It is the feeling that the game is rigged, and you are destined to lose. So, is this hopeless? Are we doomed to be a generation of renters? Not necessarily, but the solutions are not easy. They require massive political will. We could enact policies that make
It's over. It is over, man. And they all come with these, okay, solutions, okay, of like trying to shovel an avalanche with a plastic fork. You know, it's over. Political will. What is that? Okay, it's over, man. These people, okay, are rolling out technocracy. Okay, while you're just figuring out, this and that, and like these niggas on to something else. Ain't no reversing. Ain't no fixing this system within the system. And that's why, like I say, our hope is the only thing that makes sense. What we believe in is the only thing that makes sense. Now they make us, seem like we're foolish, but what we believe in is the only thing that makes sense. All right, as a solution to the problem. Okay, was you're getting in that second Esdras. But I want to get this real quick in the chat. Something I looked up, and just to show you how our law, okay, was meant, all right, for equality. For making sure there wasn't permanent poverty. Okay, for making sure there wasn't, this small elite, wealthy. You're always going to have people that's more wealthy than other people. Okay, that ain't the problem. The problem is when it becomes, you know, um, unbalanced, when it becomes injustice. Okay, well, a small few have extreme wealth and the masses have extreme poverty. That's imbalance. Okay, you're always going to have your social classes and people in different tiers. Okay, of wealth, but there's still supposed to be an even distribution. It's supposed to be a balance. Okay, it says, yes, Isaiah 5 and 8. So I asked, I said, could Isaiah 5 and 8 be linked to unfair real estate practices of today? It says, yes, Isaiah 5 and 8 can very reasonably be linked to unfair real estate practices today, both, all right, thematically and ethically. All right, it says, Isaiah 5 and 8, it says, you join your house to house. All right, I said, or woe or destruction. You who join house to house, who add field to field until there is no room for no one but you, and you are left to live alone in the midst of the land. What the verse condemns in its original text in Isaiah's time, this was a prophetic indictment of land accumulation by elites. Wealthy landowners were buying up and seizing property. Small farmers were being pushed off ancestral land. The practice violated Israel's covenant ideals where land was meant to be shared fairly and families were protected from permanent dispossession going to the year of Jubilee. Okay. And it says, this wasn't just about greed, it was about systemic injustice that harmed communities. Clear parallels to modern real estate practices. While the context is ancient, the pattern Isaiah condemns still exists, man, showing you that this wisdom was meant to govern eternity. Okay, the wisdom of the scriptures is never outdated. Okay, this man shit is played out. His system is played out. Okay, and is running the earth and people to the ground. Okay, it says corporate or investor driven land accumulation. All right, BlackRock and all these different major corporations. Okay, large entities buying up housing housing stock can reduce affordability. That's why houses aren't affordable. Okay, this is intentionally being done. Okay, to where all right, you have to damn near go to school and get in hundreds of $1,000s of debt, okay, to get a salary that's paying so much to get a house, man. The game is so rigged and flawed right now. It's crazy. Okay, two full-time working people, it's hard for them to afford housing, man. Okay, this is a wicked society, man. But then he boasts about he's spending billions on this, and you know they've invested trillions into America. This the most ever been invested into America. Okay, so they boasting all this wealth. Okay, but they don't share any of it, man. They don't distribute it like it should be. This man can still be, you know, a million times richer than everyone and still have affordable housing, man. Okay, like this is just completely wicked how this man runs the earth, man. But this is why he's gonna get judged in the fashion that he's gonna be judged, man. Okay, it says crowd out first time or lower income buyers. All right, concentrate wealth and power, gentrification without safeguards, development that displaces long term residents, raises rent beyond community reach, benefits outsiders more than local, closely mirrors adding field to field. Speculative housing markets treated homes primarily as investment assets rather than shelter echoes Isaiah's concern that land was being commodified at the expense of the people. The theological principle is timeless, showing you that this wisdom is meant to rule forever. The theological principle is timeless. Okay, and that's the main point of this lesson, to show you that the wisdom of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai is supposed to govern the earth forever, man. It's set up to govern the earth in righteousness forever. And that's what we're coming into, man. Okay, this is what we're being trained up to do, to govern the earth in righteousness forever, man. Lord, will we endure, man? And hey, it's a good chance we could be on that number. Just keep fighting, man. Keep fighting, keep consistently waking up, doing the right thing, man, according to the ability given to us by Yahweh by Shemal Shai. Isaiah 5 and 8 isn't anti-ownership or anti-development. It critiques excessive accumulation, exclusion of others, economic systems that erase community, man. And this is what this man has done. Okay, especially here in America, man. Okay. It says, so going to the bottom line, it says, yes, Isaiah 5 and 8 speaks powerfully into modern conversations about housing and justice. It reminds us that when land and housing become tools of exclusion rather than community flourishing, they fall under the same moral critique Isaiah voiced nearly 3,000 years ago, man. You know, because in our kingdom, man, it's going to be a fair system after that 1,000 years. Because that 1,000 years, these heathens, listen, housing is going to be the least of their work. Okay? You see? Is this going to be all about labor in first 1,000 years? All labor. Okay? You heathens, hey, you don't even worry about this for 1,000 years. Now, this will come after. It'll be a fair market after that. That 1,000 years is going to be labor. Okay? Because that's a punishment. All right? For Esau and these heathens for rebelling against Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. And Esau, he's going to be done away with. Okay, he's not going to be needed in the earth. Okay, after his captivity. So let's go here. Let's get this in. Is that Second Ezra, the 4th chapter? Second Ezra 4. All right, this is the book of Second Ezra, chapter 4, verse 28. It said, but as concerning the things whereof thou askest me, I will tell thee. For the evil is sown, but the destruction thereof is not yet come. Okay? So the evil has been sown in the earth, even going back to the garden. But the destruction hasn't come. And see, now we're in a time of destruction. You see, wisdom has been allowed, to flourish, okay, and build empires, okay, in the earth, okay, mainly under this devil Esau, Edom, who will always have the most wicked empires. These other heathens, their empire will be wicked. They'll be into their other gods, okay. You always have the corrupt elite, amongst, these heathens. But there's just none more corrupt than Esau. Okay. It says, if therefore that which is sown be not turned upside down, and if the place where the evil is sown pass not away, then cannot it come. All right, that is sown with good. Okay, so before, all right, a righteous kingdom, is planted in the earth, by the Lord, all right, delivering them in elect, changing them, all right, perfecting them in righteousness, okay, and sending them back down to rule the earth in righteousness. Well, before that happens, this place has to be turned upside down. Okay, America has become a desert. This whole beast system, all this digital infrastructure, and all this infrastructure that the devil got set up, it got to come down. Okay, all these governments and constitutions and all this got to come down. Okay, then the right government can be established. Okay, and these are the times. This is the transition that we're in. This is the times we're in. Okay, so that's the point. Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified once again. I'm gonna give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem Kakodash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessings, salutations to the whole Shalom.